I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to congratulate you on assuming the presidency of the Council for this month and on your able steering of its work. It is regrettable that we had to wait 50 days to reach the partial temporary pause of the terrorist Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip and to halt the barbaric Israeli killing machine, which has been killing children, women, journalists, humanitarian workers, targeting residential buildings, hospitals, schools, UN facilities, and other aggressions that are tantamount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. What Israel has committed during the previous period was nothing but a crime of aggression and full-fledged crimes against humanity. We cannot, under any circumstances, justify this aggression under the pretext of self-defense or countering terrorism. What the Israeli forces have done is tantamount to crimes and a deliberate destruction that was witnessed by all of humanity and denounced by humanity. If this does not amount to terrorism and deliberate killing, what is it then? Furthermore, Israel persists in its crimes and aggressions against Syria, the last of which was the aggression 2 days ago in broad daylight against the international airport of Damascus and locations in rural Damascus that were targeted by rockets, decommissioning the airport again only a few hours after the resumption of its operations and of navigation. This aggression also threatened passengers and also threatened the safety of civil aviation and disrupted UN operations. It seems that the representatives of some Western countries in this whole did not hear yet of this aggression or do not want to hear about it. Syria condemns these flagrant aggressions, which represent a grave violation of the UN Charter and of international law. Syria calls upon the Security Council to shoulder its responsibilities and to condemn these aggressions, putting an end to them, guaranteeing their non-recurrence, and holding their perpetrators accountable, those same perpetrators that are dragging the region into a serious escalation of which we cannot predict the consequences or avoid the devastating effects. Mr. President, the government of the Syrian Arab Republic continues with its positive steps in an attempt to overcome the repercussions of the terrorist war against it. During this month, Syria has renewed the authorization granted to the United Nations and its specialized agencies to use the Bab al-Salam and Al-Rai border crossings for 3 additional months until the 13th of February 2024. This comes out of our keenness to improve the humanitarian and living conditions of all Syrians and to deliver humanitarian assistance to those in need in all the regions of Syria, including in the northwest. As concerns the return of the Syrian refugees, Syria welcomes their safe, dignified, and voluntary return to their homeland, and it has engaged in a constructive dialogue with UNHCR to address the main concerns of the refugees. I would like to share with you some of the aspects that would allow for a voluntary, safe, and dignified return of the refugees to Syria. First, there is a need to enhance communication and consultation with actors concerned with the return of the refugees. Second, achieving a greater and wider humanitarian access and a more flexible and predictable presence of UNHCR, especially in the main return regions and on border locations. Third, allowing refugees and IDPs to make free, informed decisions about their return and to freely choose their destination. Fourth, using the communication and consultation channels to examine the cases that are reported and pertaining to the voluntary, safe, and dignified return. Fifth, The returnees should not be subjected to discrimination for fleeing their places of residency or for seeking asylum abroad or for staying or residing in a region that was or is still under the control of the armed terrorist groups. 6. There is a need to tackle all issues pertaining to recruitment and military service in a non-discriminatory manner. The returnees shall benefit from the relevant amnesty decrees. 7. Refugees and returnees, like other Syrians, enjoy all the rights and obligations guaranteed by the Constitution and by Syrian laws and legislations without any discrimination. They will be protected in their life, freedom, and human dignity, and they shall not be subjected to any discrimination or any violation of their basic rights guaranteed by the Syrian Constitution and laws. 8. Guaranteeing or allowing access to the necessary documentation and certifying the civil and academic documents granted to the refugees abroad, facilitating regulations and procedures pertaining to housing, land, and property. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of this endeavor requires the states that have been supporting, funding, and arming terrorism not to obstruct the efforts of Syria, to increase the early recovery projects quantitatively and qualitatively, to fund the clearance of mines and explosive remnants, and to improve the humanitarian and living conditions in Syria. Mr. President, as a culmination of all these efforts and in a clear desire to consolidate the national reconciliation and to achieve stability, the President of the Syrian Arab Republic has issued Legislative Decree number 36 of 2023 a few days ago. This is the second amnesty decree in less than a year. The decree grants a general amnesty for all crimes committed before the 16th of November 2023. The decree encompasses large numbers of convicted and prosecuted, including juveniles, elderly, and chronic patients. Mr. President, it is surprising to see that the positive Syrian steps are met by the persistence by some Western states to politicize the humanitarian dossier by imposing conditions failing to fulfill their obligations towards the humanitarian response plan. The funding of this plan has only reached 30% while we are 1 month away from the end of the year. This hinders the implementation of UN humanitarian programs in Syria. Furthermore, the United States persists in its hostile policies against the Syrian people. The US forces are occupying Syrian land, killing Syrians without mercy. They are supporting separatist militias, using terrorist groups in the 10th region to destabilize Syria. Furthermore, they are plundering our national resources and imposing, along with the EU, UCMs on all the vital sectors, including food, medicine, energy, transportation, and agricultural production. This has caused an immense, unprecedented economic and humanitarian suffering for Syrians. This collective punishment, blockade, and starvation will have devastating, catastrophic consequences. It is high time for these Western states to reconsider their hostile, inhumane policies against my country, to adopt a humanitarian political approach by committing to fully respecting the sovereignty of Syria, its independence and territorial integrity, by ending the illegal presence of Turkish and American forces, putting an end to repeated Israeli aggressions, and immediately lifting the illegitimate UCMs. In conclusion, Mr. President, it seems that the ambassador of the United States is trying once again to accuse my country in an attempt to shift the attention from the support granted by its country to Israeli terrorism in a blatant double standard policy implemented by its country, by her country. We are all aware of the replete record of war crimes committed and being committed by the United States in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and the list goes on. When the ambassador invokes the charter to justify their ongoing crimes against Syria is refuted by the facts. The charter and international law do not justify or give a legal justification for the presence of the U.S. forces on Syrian territories without the approval of the Syrian government. The United States has aggressed the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Syria. They have led an alleged coalition to fight terrorist ISIS. But facts have shown that the real goal of this coalition was only to support terrorism and to destabilize the security and safety of Syria to serve the interests of the United States and the Israeli entity. Thank you.
I thank Syria